Hello, I'm Robin Gibson, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so you get a notification of when we release a new video. I'm sitting with Michael Porter. Welcome, Michael.
Morning, Robin.
So, Michael, you said in last week's Money Morsel that good news is bad news and bad news is good news. We're on that train. We've opened August with the rand under pressure, the dollar strong, and markets under pressure. I'm guessing it's good news, is it?
No, it's not. You always have the ability to change your mind, to change what you said, Robin.
Yes.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, it's been quite a tumultuous week, and it just shows how much can change in a week. So last week, actually, the Bank of Japan tinkered with their interest rate policy a little bit, which is, which was the first cog in the wheel. And then on Tuesday, South Africans will be familiar with this because the US got downgraded. Now,
Oh, wow.
sure, yeah,
Okay.
can the US get downgraded? You know, we get downgraded, but can the US get downgraded?
Okay.
So they were downgraded by Fitch from AAA to AA.
Okay.
So it's only one notch down from the top. But now this is actually the second, Moody's, I think, downgraded them about 8 years ago. But it was almost sort of unnoticed, you know. Now you've had a situation where 2 out of the 3 rating agencies have downgraded the US from AAA to AA. So if you have a mandate that only allows you to hold AAA securities, now you're actually in trouble because 2 out of 3 essentially, you know, more than 50%, you know. So I think that's caused a little bit of a spook in markets, and funnily enough, it's actually caused obviously bond yields in America to rise a little bit, but almost the dollar to strengthen. In addition, there's been some good news in America. GDP last Friday was stronger than expected. So the economy's certainly strong in America for all intents and purposes. And yeah, the dollar has strengthened. And so the rand has weakened on the back of that. So we've gone from 1760 this time last week to 1860 in a week, you know, which is a big move if you're an exporter or an importer for that matter. But I think these gyrations are just part and parcel of what happens in markets, Robin, you know.
Yes.
And so with the rand weakening, obviously the outlook for high interest rates becomes a little bit more uncertain, and our markets are sort of sold off a little bit on that news.
Yes, yeah. So the American bond obviously yield rising on 2 fronts. One, because it's expecting that we're going to have another, if the economy is strong, another interest rate hike, and well, U.S. government now being AA rated as opposed to AAA rated, they've got to offer more to attract money.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, Robin, I mean, you know, I think, we talk about our debt to GDP at sort of 72% or thereabouts. The US is at 120%, and it's gone up a lot since the financial crisis. So remember, we did a lot of quantitative easing back then.
Yes.
The debt never really came down in the intervening sort of 10, 12 years. Then we had COVID, obviously spent a huge amount of money, and the US is spending too much money. And I think this is a sort of a shot across the bow for all countries that at some point, you have to rein in that spending, you know. So whether it points to a period of austerity coming in the US where they have to rein in their budget deficit, you know, the UK went through a long period where they had this sort of 7 years of austerity post the financial crisis. I think one of the reasons that Fitch cited was this sort of political wrangling. You know, every time we have this debt ceiling issue in the US, I mean, it goes right down to the last day, and the politicians can't agree. And actually, that's not good for essentially the US gets closer and closer to default, a technical default, not a hard default like you might have in Zambia or Argentina or something, but essentially a default nonetheless, you know. And so I think it's a shot across the bow for countries that you can't just borrow money and spend money ad infinitum. You know, we all know in our personal capacities, you actually have to just run a budget surplus sometimes, you know. Yeah.
So, Michael, I think there's a lot of people that ask the question, and I mean, it's a recurring theme, this question: is this the death of the dollar?
Yeah, Robin, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I think we are seeing a change in global hegemony at the moment, and who's the sort of dominant country. But I think this is a long-term trend. So there's no doubt that other countries would like to see the dollar weakening and move away from the dollar. And I mean, Brazil and China are settling transactions in their own currencies. And there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, the BRICS summit that's coming up is talking about a sort of BRICS currency, although I don't think that's going to materialize anytime soon. But I think there's a lot of talk about doing things differently. And it's also because when things are settled in dollars, from a political point of view, when you settle something in dollars, for 1 second it touches a US bank account somewhere in that transaction. And then essentially, if it even goes through a US bank or bank account for 1 second, the US have jurisdiction over that and they can charge you with money laundering or fraud, or, which in some ways their role as global policemen is quite helpful, and they've done a lot of good with that.
Yes.
But countries are also very skeptical. Well, I mean, look at Russia now being cut off in sanctions and things like that. Countries don't want to be dictated to. So I think the dollar is going to weaken long term,
But the dollar is going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere soon. So the death of the dollar is greatly exaggerated.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Michael, thank you for giving us some insight into that. We look forward to updating you on what might happen this next week in our next Money Morsel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.